Hello everyone, I am Ramya and I will be your host for today's session on Internet of Things, today and tomorrow, what it is and why it matters. Thank you so much for joining us. This webinar is brought to you by Vervin Technologies. Vervin is an online career platform for young professionals who can get free guidance from industry and subject matter experts in various fields to navigate and build their careers. Read our curated blogs, work trends, and other articles to grow professionally. We also provide an avenue for exciting job opportunities by partnering with companies looking out for talent. Please log on to www.vervin.com and register to be part of our community. Now, as we all know, IoT is an evolving field, yet there are a lot of job opportunities here. And as per Vervin's own research, there are more than 4,000 open positions right now on Naukri and other job sites across years of experience, even for freshers. Hence, we bring to you this webinar on IoT because there is a lot of demand and opportunity to grow in this field. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the speaker of this session, Mr. Jayakrishnan AL. Starting his professional life in 1999 as an electronics technician, Jayakrishnan has around 2 decades of work experience across segments in electronic system design, manufacturing, and research and development industry. After working on many private and government projects in senior and lead technology roles, including projects with ISRO, he began the startup journey in 2015 by founding HW Design Labs, an ESDM startup focusing on hardware design, product development, and innovation. In this webinar, we will go into the depths of IoT, the various platforms, computing, and connectivity, along with the current and future trends in this technology. There will also be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please keep leaving your questions in the chat box and we will take it up at the end. And I also urge you all to please remain on mute at all times. Thank you so much once again for joining. And now I will let Jay Krishnan take over. Jay Krishnan, you can please start sharing your screen and begin.
Yeah. Ramya, are you sharing the slides or should I?
Please share your screen, Jay Krishnan.
Okay. Yeah. Is it viewable now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and your screen is also visible.
Okay. Thank you, Ramya, for the nice introduction. So let us start. So good evening, everyone, to the webinar of Internet of Things today and tomorrow. It's my great pleasure to be part of this webinar series, and also meet all of you who are interested in Internet of Things, whether you may be a student or a working professional or an academician or some enthusiast. I hope this will be a kind of a good beginning, and also we are actually covering all the aspects broadly related to the IoT. So over the next 40 to 50 minutes, you will be going through all the important aspects of Internet of Things in terms of network architecture and how these topologies are established based on various requirements in the IoT concept, and also for people who are willing to enter into the Internet of Things industry as and choose as a career. So I hope they will also be able to get some insight with this webinar.
Jaykrishnan, can you,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, can you please share your screen in slideshow? Not full screen is not visible.
Actually, I'm sharing. Not viewable.
Your full screen is not visible.
Wait just a minute.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
So the beep sound that is coming to us regularly, it's very disturbing to us. Can you please mute it? There's a beep sound coming again and again from a notification or something like that.
When someone is joining.
Yes, we are trying to mute it. So sorry for this. We are trying to mute it. Jaykrishnan, probably you can stop sharing your screen and share it once again.
Okay. Is it full screen now?
No, your slide is still getting cut.
Maybe I can turn off my video so that.
Can you please stop sharing and share once again?
Okay. Yeah.
Please try sharing once again.
Yes. Yes. Is this fine?
It's still getting cut.
I think it's okay. Let's proceed, Ramya. Jaykrishnan, we can proceed. I think it is visible, though it's in a section of your screen, but it is visible.
Is it readable?
Yeah, it is to an extent readable, yes.
Okay. I don't know what is the problem.
Yeah, I think we can
tried,
continue.
I
Because
tried full
yes.
screen and
Yeah.
then I tried other option also.
Okay.
Displaying my PowerPoint. Okay. So I hope I can continue.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let us continue. And as I told, in next 40 to 50 minutes, we will cover broadly in terms of IoT and all technology related to Internet of Things. And to introduce myself, I am Jay Krishnan. I'm founding director of HW Design Labs. We are a startup and we are working from Maker Village, Cochin. So the core area that we work is hardware and product design and development. And in fact, we are working on navigation and tracking solutions. So we also have a product line that is under development, which is related to Internet of Things. And moving forward, I will be able to share you more insight into of my experience and our team's experience. So we can make it more interactive, and any questions you have, you can either post it in the question box, or you can ask at the end of the session. So please feel free to interact on any doubts you have, and we will be very happy to assist you. So I would like to acknowledge the sources of information that I have gained during the preparation of this PowerPoint presentation, and I did not make everything by myself. So some of the images that I have used is taken from public domain. So this is our webinar agenda. So we will go through. We will have an overview of our Internet of Things and what it is and why does it matter. Then we will go through the building blocks where we will cover architectural and network topologies. We will also cover on systems, hardware, software point of view. And moving further, we will go through the computational part of these IoT systems. Then we will go and we will take a look at what are the platforms available today. And again, this is a very hot subject called big data. So even though I am not directly working into big data, I will be able to give you a brief coverage, and I will be interested to hear from you as well on what are the other aspects of it. So we will also cover current trends and future trends in IoT. And I hope Varvin team and even Dravnya can share some inputs on career options. So there are a set of roles that are highly in demand in the upcoming job industry. So it will be interesting to discuss these moving forward. I hope you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah. So Internet of Things, what it is. So it's all about the data as well as observing every moment of things on this planet, which could influence the industry, people involved, and the environment we are in. So time being considered as the most important factor in decision making, access to correct information without any delay, which is most important in Internet of Systems. In so that we can ensure any error-free management of things around us, which are meant for the growth as well as well-being of everything around us. So as I mentioned, IoT seems to be more of a data-driven concept rather than the technology by itself. When you look backwards for about last 2 decades, we have seen internet, we have seen storage, we have seen computing, and we also know about sensors and all these electronic hardwares, everything available. But we have not heard a big fuss on IoT until we see last few years. So what did this mean? It is nothing but the data that we realize is having more value, perhaps more value than the devices carrying or managing it. So this is a big door opening to the world of Internet of Things, which will essentially feed in the data and the data science industry. So in terms of technology, when we think, the exponential growth of various technologies in terms of computing, wireless or hardware, and even manufacturing. Now we have access to everything in this world, and most of our academia and education institutions have accessibility to high-tech systems. So this also have fueled the growth of Internet of Things over the last few years, and there have been a lot of research going on in R&D. I mean R&D on software platforms which are used in the IoT, which have accelerated the concept of IoT, and so that the business can grow and also the career opportunities, and can also be a main accelerator for improving the efficiency as well as well-being for the people as well as the environment. So the main components of this Internet of Things system, it all includes devices, networks, storage, and the computing equipments. And the ultimate aim is get more efficiency, go more green, and grow as much as possible in terms of business and commercial. So when we look at the basic building blocks, primarily we see sensing, communication, and storage are the 3 key elements in any kind of electronic system that you use for acquiring data or monitoring or observing the information. So, but when we look at these sensors, so the sensing part itself is a big industry where we have several types of sensors available, whether it is temperature or humidity or motion, speed, everything. And the recent trends have shown that you can even sense the aroma, or it can sense the smell of objects. and there are transducers available. When I mean transducer, this is actually the technical word for the sensor. So commonly we call it as sensors. So highly used, they highly being used in industry for uh, doing a lot of things in terms of IoT and instrumentation and also industrial automation. So overall, I would like to say that sensor technology itself is a big area where uh, huge uh, huge level of R&D and being invested and across the country. The next part is the communication, which is very synonymous, where we have heard about the wireless communication, we have heard about the wired, and also we have optical wireless technology. And so most of the IoT and the related uh, learnings people have, they might have definitely come across the communication part. And so some more things we can cover in the following slides. So storage is nothing but memory and the devices that store the information. So basically, when we see these three are the building blocks, but when we need to go on top of this, for example, if it is an IoT deployed worldwide or in a particular area, so you will have hundreds to thousands of sensors, and you need to manage the real-time data from all these networks. Here we see a lot of complexity in terms of accessing the data, acquiring the information, storing, and also manipulating or processing in real time. So it takes a lot of computational power. It also takes a lot of network capacity requirement. And on top of that, you will have security related aspects becoming more prevalent. So when you look at the whole picture, the basic building blocks includes all these. And maybe we will see it in a different form, may not be exactly matching with what we have shown here, but definitely these are the core areas. So to start with the IoT architecture, I can show a very basic form of networking where you can say it can be an in-house monitoring system where you have a cold storage or a home appliance or an equipment, and which is associated with a Wi-Fi device. So the end user have either a tab or a mobile computing device which will be associated with the gateway. So this kind of network is a very basic, simplest form where it's optional that you need to have a internet or cloud connectivity. You can directly monitor the device in your home with Wi-Fi without any other network. So this is kind of a basic connectivity we can say, and this is one thing that we can start as the basic IoT architecture. So next level, when we go, the things are more increasing. So here we see you need to monitor the data or a system you want to monitor when you are in travel or you are away from the office or away from home. So definitely you need to connect to internet. So here really we mean internet is required, and the networks, whether it is a cellular network or any other, definitely works as the backbone for IoT, and gateways are always used to manage the data and bandwidth and also the connectivity related to the internet. So here you have another way where you have a network server which will manage the connection between the user as well as the IoT device, and which is deployed in the field. So I'm going further one more step ahead. Here we have, instead of a sensor, we have a CCTV surveillance camera. So here we have video stream, which being captured by a camera and transferred to a gateway, where you have the network connectivity and also you have servers which will store and process. It will also facilitate the users who are connecting to these servers. So the reason why I'm going through this different topologies is to give you an understanding of at which point when we need to decide what kind of topology is required, and it is highly based on the data speed and also the bandwidth. So in detail we will discuss this in the moving slides. So this is next slide is slightly different from what I have currently, where you can see under the CCTV surveillance camera, you can see one box. So it is nothing but we are running a face recognition algorithm. Now, how it matters. So here you have to think about the bandwidth, because when you have a video streaming from a camera and your gateway and it is transferred to the network, then it goes to the cloud server or you have a private server. So now you are trying to run the face detection algorithm, and the person who is in the doorstep or wherever the camera is deployed, they just pass through. So how do you decide the person is authenticated? So here we have the problem with the bandwidth, we have network capacity, and all these things comes into picture. So this is maybe we can call another form of edge computing. So we have a device which will also capture the image and it will process at the point of deployment. Then it will transfer a processed data. So imagine if you have multiple cameras receiving different captures from all over the different locations deployed. Then this kind of architecture will be more suitable to see as an IoT purpose. So similar to this, I am also describing about a scenario where we use the biometric access control. So biometric access control, imagine you go to a place and then you swipe and open the door. So how does the system know that it is an authenticated person? You are issued with a security access card, but the data is stored in somewhere else. So the moment you swipe, within a fraction of a second, you need to have that your fingerprint or any access authenticated token immediately acknowledged by the server. But in a fraction of a second, this doesn't happen. So what happens is, how do they do this? So here they transfer the block of all fingerprint kind of references to the point of deployment, POD device, which is called our biometric access control. So internally, it will store the list of all access control fingerprint references. So the moment anyone swipes their card, they are just acknowledged or they are denied within a fraction of a second. So here the processing happens on the server or in the gateway. So this is another way to explain. On the computing is done in different locations based on the application and what are the dependencies of it. So here is another area where we call remote metering. So remote metering is very popular these days, as government and industries are working on it extensively, so that human intervention can be minimized. It will also help the industry to efficiently manage the energy or any other kind of information that is related to a production manufacturing industry or anything like solar energy systems. So here we have several devices deployed randomly across many locations or buildings. So there can be one WAN gateway which will pull the data from every meter, and also the data coming from the meter will be encrypted so that the gateway will do a kind of aggregation. So it does a data aggregation and it transfers to the cloud server or app server where the user can directly access it. So this is one scenario. So when you go in a larger scale where we have several thousands of meters to be read, then we will have a separate system called the data concentrator. So in the primary level, every gateway will acquire data from all these meters, and once they receive all these data, then this will be transferred to a data concentrator, which will do pre-processing, and then the network will take care of. So when I mean the network in all my slides, it can either be a cellular network or it can be a fiber optic network. So because of time, I could not draw a detailed diagram for everything. So I hope you are able to follow my screens. And any questions you have, you can interrupt me anytime. So this is another way to make it more efficient. when you
Jay
have,
Krishnan, actually, sorry to interrupt Satya here. Would you like Ramya to share the screen? There are portions of your slides that are getting cut. Will you be comfortable if Ramya would share the presentation?
okay, let me try that. Yeah, please share.
Yeah. So Ramya, see if you can share it.
Oh, sure. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yeah.
Is this
Can
better
you make
for
it
everyone?
proceed?
Yeah, this is definitely better, Ramya.
Sure.
Yeah, Jay Krishnan, you can resume. JK,
So I'm
you're
not
able
sure.
to see? You're able to see?
Yeah, I can see, but
Yeah.
it's again not full screen. And if everyone is okay, I will just proceed.
Yeah. We are able to see full screen now. Sure.
Fine.
Please continue.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. So we have this kind of topology where the devices are connected kind of a daisy chain. So imagine you have around the 10 to 20 kilometer area where you have 10,000 to 20,000 meters to be read for any devices that are deployed. So it may not be possible for your gateway to read from all the locations. So this is a way where every device will also act as a relay. It will do kind of a networking. We can either call it as the daisy chain, or it can also be called as a mesh network. So based on the uh, scenario or the density of the network, there can be some intelligence used to access or find out which kind of a networking is more efficient and fast enough to read all the meters within a short period of time. So this is one way more research is going on, where a lot of mostly software algorithms are developed for these kind of applications. Yeah. So do I have the access to change the screen? Yeah, you can go to
I
next
think
slide. So now let us come to this systems part. So one of the basic part or the physical part of this Internet of Things is mostly in terms of hardware, computing, and microprocessors. So these are the main main elements of Internet of Systems in IoT systems, where you have hardware, which is essentially a printed circuit board with a chipset on it, and also you have the sensors and all other associated components embedded. And these devices will be deployed. And so, how the platforms are working with this hardware? So, many companies, OEMs, they develop hardware based on different specifications and standards they follow. At the same time, the industry, they work on a different thing where they develop software platforms based on Java, .NET, and other internet and web based technologies. So there is a huge mismatch where both the systems of, I mean, this hardware and this web-related applications or this IoT platform cannot match. So here we need to have something called application programming interface. I hope you must have heard about it. So APIs are mostly commonly used by Java and even software developers, but it is not only so. Even for the hardware, there are APIs, and people who have worked on Arduino or Raspberry Pi or any IoT platforms, they would have use this API, maybe directly as an API, or it will be kind of called as embedded libraries, driver libraries. So the next part along with this will be the embedded platform, where people use the microcontroller, microprocessor, and they use architectures like ARM 8051 or PIC, and there are many other new upcoming. For example, RISC-V is one open source architecture of the embedded platform. Even our India is building its own microprocessor by name Shakti. and which is led by the team in IIT Madras. So let us hope in future we will have RISC-V processors manufactured in India, and we will see IoT products built based on this RISC-V processor. Next slide, please. So to tell about the connectivity, we have a range of connectivity options available. Wi-Fi is very common and not to everyone. Then cellular network all uses 3GPP, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G is coming. And in terms of PAN and the local network, you have Bluetooth, Zigbee, NFC, and these are all non-networked, but it's all short-range protocol. And on top of that, you have LPWAN, which are used for long distance and last mile connectivity like LoRa, Sigfox, NB-IoT. So NB-IoT is something that India is looking forward, that it will create a big revolution in terms of Internet of Things deployment in India. Next slide, please. So these are the comparison of various network protocols used and all different wireless standards. And basically all these have many differences one to other. There are certain technology that supports large bandwidth where you can stream a video, but there are many other which uses only a few kilobytes of data rate, but they are used for long distance and large kind of deployment where you have thousands or more devices. For example, meter reading is one area where you need to have huge number of devices deployed, and you need to manage several connections at a time. So here you cannot use very large bandwidth because, and also your data is also limited. So people use LoRa and Zigbee or NB-IoT networks for this. But when you look at video streaming, there we need to go with 4G or 5G, which is upcoming. So here we have the flexibility to stream HD videos and surveillance applications. So when you think about Bluetooth is something I hope people are very well aware about it. So I'm not explaining much. Then other areas are like Zigbee, Z-Wave. So these are all other intermediate standards which uses license-free band, and they are one way or the other popular in India or other countries. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is a security part in Internet of Things in general, where you have multiple ways of securing your device. So when we see the network topology or a complete architecture of IoT, there are several points which are vulnerable to data threat or snooping. When you look at CCTV camera, anybody, if they have an access to your camera or the cable or the gateway or anywhere in the chain, they can snoop in and they can acquire the data. So what are the methods they do? So encryption is one common method they use, SSL 256 or SSL 120, and there are more kind of encryption protocols being introduced these days, and something called virtual private networking, where it's a particular kind of encryption used only for the point to point. So there are several options available these days. So in hardware point of view, there are kind of security methods being followed where it cannot be tampered. In software, they use algorithms, even in the algorithms for encryption. And also in case of storage, same thing. So in storage, you have multiple ways to keep your data preserved. And if any kind of tamper happens, so either it can be destroyed by itself, or there are methods to identify the data, how it has been stored. So even though the security threat still prevails, the methods for counteracting these security issues are still in the research and it's still growing. So apart from this firewall and the intrusion detection, these are all the very common words that being used in the industry. So It's only a kind of creating another layer in the system where you have to define certain things completely private to you or the organization. So even if the names vary, but the purpose is more or less similar. Can you go to the next slide, please? So recently we hear edge computing, edge server. Basically what it means, I can give you one example. In 99 or beginning of 2000, people used to use Yahoo mails. I think even people have Yahoo email. Even I have one ID and still use it. So those days, even if I send an email to my friend sitting next to me, my email will go to Korea. So the server, Yahoo server was outside India, in somewhere else. So the email that goes to Korea, and then my friend, when he logs in, he can read it. So this is one basic level it was started initially. As the number of connections and the quantum of data increased, then the network management and data management became more complex. Then the server started and or the storage started coming towards the users. So at one point we see around the 2000, we started hearing cloud computing. So this is nothing but your server from single point, it is decentralized. Now you have cloud servers everywhere, but we don't know physically where it is. It's a kind of a virtual a network setup where you have several computers networked, which will also act as a server, and it will also act as a storage. So nowadays, many of the e-commerce applications, they run in cloud servers, because in e-commerce, the users can be from anywhere. But when you have a private network of your own, you are the only person who is accessing. So it is an optional that you need to have a cloud server. Until unless you go to some other country and use some system to access your office or the home automation kind of application, where you need to see a real-time performance, then definitely you need to host your application in a cloud server rather than a private server. So, and also in case of systems like biometric sensing and even image detection using surveillance cameras. So all these areas where you cannot have your main server to process the data and take a decision whether this person is authenticated or not. So these situations are mainly determining where the computing has to take place. So as we see, the computing process itself is moving from a centralized point towards devices. Now we have edge computing, where the device that you have deployed in the field, there will be a mini SBC or a computer or small kind of a mechanism that itself will do the processing and it will take the decision. Then it will transfer only a processed data to the gateway. So it can also be called as a distributed computing. Yeah, next slide, please. So this is a brief view of the distributed computing, where actually it is not very much known in IoT because they use it mainly for simulations. If you have very large amount of data and you want to do some simulation, maybe it's a weather analysis or forecast, where a single computer resources may not be able to process. So they have a separate application which will automatically distribute the complete simulation by fragmenting it into 3 or 4 parts, and it will be parallelly processed in multiple computers, and finally the data will be integrated to one. So this is called the distributed computing. This is more used in research and simulation related industry. Next slide, please. So something called pervasive computing. So just all these one way or the other connected to IoT, I think it is important to include this in the subject. So pervasive computing is nothing but everywhere. You don't know on which location. So whether it is a network or a device or a system or a server anywhere. So any gadget that are connected to internet are being analyzed or monitored for the user experience, and this will also definitely create more trust and authenticity between network and nodes. So the more you have this data, you can also determine which area to be controlled to minimize the security threats. So as you know, security, internet cyber security is one of the very hot area where even though we have several sophisticated systems, we hear that one way or the other, some kind of hacking or threat has been happening. So it is still in a growing stage, and many companies are researching on it. So pervasive computing is one way that computing itself is happening everywhere. If you have a device or even if you have a gaming device, it may also be that data also may be used to analyze the behavior. For example, driver behavior is one aspect where insurance companies are now making use of this data. So imagine you have 10 people buying same model of car on same day, but eventually if you see every year, you will notice that the driving behavior itself is creating a challenge for the insurance companies to determine whether the incident was real or it was due to negligence. So all these areas, pervasive computing is one main concept where decision making has been highly efficient. Next. So as I told this computing part, what are the influencing factors? So access time, simultaneous access, volume of data, bandwidth of networks, distance, and type of medium. And maybe I might have missed something, but these are the core part that will determine the computing should take place whether on the device or on the gateway or on the server or in the user and device. So it can happen anywhere, and it depends on the size of the data volume and also the access time requirement. Certain cases you don't need very real-time access because internet and bandwidth are very conservative. So people who want to use very simple applications or that doesn't consume so much of data, they can be on a different priority of traffic. And when it comes to security, especially in airports, where security being more of a big concern, so those data will be processed on a higher priority. So the computing related to Internet of Things is not decided based on any other, mostly because of any of these factors. When you work in this industry in future, definitely you will come across one or the other, and that's the reason I have covered all this. Yeah. Next, please. So when we look at the IoT platforms, these are the most commonly used platforms, and there are a good number of IoT platforms which are open source, and there are many on proprietary license. So, and also these IoT platforms have been focused on certain applications which are either it is industrial IoT and data processing, or it can be for healthcare industry, or it can be for any entertainment or sports. So all these aspects. So I'm not sure it's very clear or not. It looks a little blurred. So IBM Watson and AWS from Amazon. So some of these IoT platforms, even we are not directly using, but our clients are using. So we get a lot of feedback from them in terms of the performance and the latency, and so we finally come to a point where we will have to choose the network protocol also. So when you say network protocol, commonly used for web applications are HTTP. But nowadays, COPA and MQTT are more used for Internet of Things related to applications. So considering the importance of this IoT topic, I just want to cover only that part, which is related to MQTT and COPA. Next slide. So when we look at the big data as an industry, Internet of Things is actually hugely feeding this industry. So I can see it as a good analogy where you have a kind of a tree diagram where the baseline is the physical layer established by IoT sensors, networks, devices, and all server connected infrastructure. And the stem of the tree, we can say it's the ecosystem, network, server, and cloud. And on top of that, we see all these new industries are grooming. So once you have huge volume of data, then you have a huge variety of applications and also research data mining, big data, blockchain, everything is built on top of that. So this is kind of a self-growing ecosystem where eventually in future we will see all these data one way or the other will be beneficial for many people. Even we might be using all these but not knowing that we are directly connected to this. So I think I had one more slide. Okay, can you see, check the next one? I think I missed that slide. Okay. So this is very common and popular in current trend where IoT is used in agriculture, livestock, monitoring the animals, then healthcare, water management, where quality of water is one of the biggest concern today. Then garbage management is equally important in India. Then home automation, still seen as a luxury. At the same time, that also is growing in terms of security concerns. Then security and surveillance for police, military, and forces. Then environment monitoring is one area where Internet of Things is highly utilized. Industrial automation, then weather monitoring, again same thing. And automotive, where you have collision avoidance and connected vehicles. This is one area where Internet of Things has a great influence. Then sports and gaming, definitely we are seeing in all these recent days with every sports activity and games that we see in television. Then smart cities, building management. Yeah. Next slide, please. So future we also call IoE, which is nothing but Internet of Everything. So because moving forward, it is going to a concept where not just something, it is everything. Yeah. Next slide. So these are the more promising and growing areas in terms of advanced or future IoT industry, where one of the biggest areas is healthcare, where microscopic level sensors are either embedded in human body or as a biosensors are planted on living beings, which can also do kind of analytics and give predictions. So it will highly improvise the way how the medical industry is working right now. It can also reduce the time and also cost, and many of the things can be done without any invasive methods. So this is one big area where future Internet of Things will be growing around. So it can also be used for recent researches have been happening around mood recognition or even cognitive properties of brain and behavioral related things. So mood recognition and management is one main area that we see research still going on. And to some extent, even drug administration, I think it is already there in India, where the insulin being administered for the patients who wear a wearable device, and the device is connected to some server, or even it is automatically, it is programmed to behave automatically. So based on your body levels of your blood sugar, it will automatically administer the insulin. So this is one area already there, but it is not kind of connected to any server. Next. So preventive maintenance. Primitive maintenance is one key area where huge risk mitigation from failures have been mitigated. So, for example, any big hospitals or any big industry or energy sector, you may not have backups, maybe more than two. If there are two generators, then if one fails, the other one can still work. So this is one scenario where I'm seeing a hospital. But when it comes to a situation where you have the hospital very big and the capacity and the infrastructure is so big, so considering the cost of the energy equipments, you cannot have multiple. So there we have opportunity to analyze the every moment and every behavior or even the vibration of sound of these engines and machines, by which there are good level of good or with some promising level of accuracy is gained in terms of determining at what point of time these parts will fail. So currently in every primitive maintenance, over a period of time, they just replace those devices or any parts of a machine. So in some cases, if the cost of the machine is really high, but they cannot compromise with the safety, especially in aviation industry. So over a period of time, every parts or every critical part of that system itself will be replaced. Now, when you think about moving forward with more efficiency and cost saving, there we need to think little more intelligently. So you have to use these kind of systems, which will definitely give a better kind of conclusion that the system will pass, or it will have any catastrophic failure in future. So all these things can be analyzed over a period of time. So this preventive maintenance is highly being used and deployed across other countries, and especially in energy sector and aviation sector. Next. So this is called a situational awareness, where every moving vehicle or any traffic related or anything that are prone to have a high level of disaster or kind of thing. So situational awareness is something where the deployed devices, they themselves will take the decision. Even if a driver is driving a vehicle, even without even being informed to the driver, the vehicle will take a decision whether to reduce the speed or avoid a collision, because it can work more faster than the human brain. So this is the way situational awareness industry is also growing. And again, everywhere you are using sensors and controlled networks. So including in sports, gaming, entertainment, traffic management, aviation, and critical landing, collision awareness. So you can still tell a big list of things where situational awareness can be still a big area where a lot of research and more promising kind of solutions can be brought up. Next slide. So Industry 4.0. Here we have, in 1960s, I think we had automation. So before that, it was everything manual. So from 1960s, the automation started across the world in manufacturing. And so in current trend, it is 4.0. So it was from 3.0 to 4.0, where we have more intelligent machines and robotics highly utilized in automated manufacturing. And they bring in a better yield compared to earlier systems. And even India, in terms of our MSMEs and many industries, are highly adapting to 4.0. And they are also now being part of any industry quality standards, where if you have 4.0 standard and kind of environment, then your products are much more promising and highly qualified in terms of market value. So yeah, next please. So this is one very critical area, or maybe we can say very sensitive area, that we might be going to see in future, where law and order and decisions or verdicts taking place in India, it is very slow and very pathetic, even in some cases. So this is one system where in future, having this Internet of Things deployed in one way or the other will give more evidence gathering. It will also give a way for the decision makers to conclude the situation and take their decisions. So crime detection and evidence gathering and crime prevention, this is most important, where Internet of Things will definitely play a great role in India and all over the world. Yeah. Next. I think that's all for today's session, and I hope you could at least get some understanding from a broader perspective. And we have
Uh,
we have almost maybe 10 to 15 minutes further. We can engage into question and answers. And yeah, please come up with your question.
Sure, Jayakrishan. We actually have a lot of questions. First of all, thank you for taking us through this session. I'll just read out the questions to you and you can answer them. Sharda asks, what are the benefits of learning Arduino and Raspberry Pi in the current industry?
Hi, Sharada. Thank you for the question. So Raspberry Pi and Arduino, to be frank, working in this industry, I feel these are all really good to start with. But even any company which is medium sized, they don't consider these open source platforms as a very good skill, but they are definitely a big step to learn. So I recommend our team or any freshers who come to us, you start with the Raspberry Pi and start get an understanding. People who have no much interaction with the hardware and connectivity platforms, so they can start with Arduino, but definitely at one point we will advise them to come out of that. Once you start adhering to the environment of Arduino and Raspberry Pi, which are something like a plug and play, even people with no much knowledge can still use it. So it creates a kind of conditioning among the candidates that they are not able to come outside that. So that is actually challenging them to work in a core level in future. So this is my very sincere advice. You start with Arduino or Raspberry Pi, but once you are familiar, slowly you switch over to a proprietary platform, either a design of a company or any places you work. Then you have to work in real C and C++, or you have to work on the real core embedded programming language and try to understand what are the library functions and everything internally. Then you start developing. Yeah. Does it answer your question?
She says that she is interested in IoT and she has learned RPI and Arduino. So what should she do after that?
Yes, this is what I think I answered same question, right? Or
yeah.
okay, so RPA is nothing but Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question. This is by Harsha. She asks, how are failures handled in a mesh network smart meters? Can there be a system override from the backend in case of revised billing plans?
So this is Harsha. This is more of a kind of software platform and data management where definitely there is a chance that hardware might be introducing some chances of failures, but definitely it need to be analyzed in depth, because now every system is an integrated it's integrated with the hardware and software. So until we don't have a in-depth understanding of it, we may not be able to identify which is the source of the problem. So when you say there are errors in the processing, or when you have some reading fails, so either you need to see it in a deeper level. Maybe you need to have some diagnostic method to understand which network or which block of your system is not responding with the data. So yeah, maybe with more details I can provide you even clear answers offline. So
okay. Another question by Deepan. He asks, how many sensors or inputs can be connected to one gateway? Gateways managed or unmanaged one for connectivity?
Okay, so there are different types of gateways, and for example, we are working on IoT platform where our gateway is expected to handle hundred more than 100 sensors. So currently there are no systems available, and we have seen there are different applications available, but similar way, but it cannot be used for our application. So it's a challenge where we have to identify our own method and develop the system. So when you say gateway, how many devices it can connect, definitely you have to go through the specifications provided by the OEM or the manufacturer, and it all depends on the bandwidth. Basically, it is bandwidth is the basic part of it, and so if you have a very wideband gateway, then you can theoretically you can connect more sensors, but if the way how it is designed to behave that it can only connect 15 or 20 sensors, but then you cannot go more than that because the system itself is designed that way. So maybe if you can be more specific about the type of gateway, I will be able to answer it better.
Okay. Akash asks, due to IoT, there is a possibility of increasing unemployment in future. So is it a disadvantage?
So this is a very gray area. Even all industrialists and the government itself is thinking. So definitely we have some views, and the same question is even being asked in many webinars. So for example, industrial environment IIoT, industrial IoT, where many manual jobs have been replaced by Internet of Things, where due to the criticality or the availability of the manpower in time, these have been many one of the big factor. So when you look at the situation where analog cameras or typewriting machines slowly evaded from the market, but the upcoming industry or new generation, they easily picked up digital cameras or computers, and so the evolution naturally happens, and people are able to adhere to the new methods. The point is only when critical only when one generation they are not ready to accept something new. So this is a challenge in terms of learning capability or the accessibility to some new systems. So definitely maybe with more specific input we can say, for example, IoT itself is a very wide area where a big spectrum of applications are being deployed. So when you want to check on this particular question, then definitely we need to know which industry. So, but definitely whatever happening is for better and improvement. So even if a person who is managing something manually, and tomorrow if an IoT system is deployed, definitely he can administer it in a better way. So there are chances of an redundant job still. They will be reducing the number of employees. If there are 5 employees in one organization for same job, then it may become 2 or 3. So this situation can eventually happen, and it has to be managed by case basis.
Thank you for that. Another question we have is, how is device access secured? Precisely, can we prevent device hacking? We have many technologies for data security compliance. So what is your take on device access security?
Again, it depends on what security standard being followed, and what is the level of vulnerability. Imagine your system is an device which is fitted on an outdoor environment, or it is publicly accessible, or it's connected to an unsecured internet or without any firewall. Then we have a chances of hacking taking place. Then you have to create more layer of your own protocols and the security encryption mechanisms, but definitely at the cost of your speed and bandwidth. So it again need to be specific on what type of device. So for example, if you have a hardware where there are many interfaces and it is connected to a different system which is to be secured, so anybody who have some mechanism, they can access these interfaces and they can read the data and decode. So it's creating a more vulnerability. So the system itself has to be in a way where public access or any kind of unauthorized access will not happen in first level. Then, so it is something like a multi-level. Okay, first level, you are not allowing the person to go into the server room. Second, you are making the data encrypted. In third point, you are making the interfaces not accessible. So there are a set of methods for every system to make it secure. So it depends on the cost as well. So if your system is very cost sensitive, then you will have to go for something very simple and in the software level. But definitely you will compromise in terms of security. So,
okay. Another question we have is, can application localization be a way to have faster and secure rendering of data within an IoT network layer?
question again, it was?
Sure. Can application localization be a way to have faster and secure rendering of data within an IoT network layer?
So actually, there are multiple questions within this. So I have to give answer by breaking this question into multiple. Okay, first thing was localization. Okay, so when you see localization, definitely you have better access speeds. That is one reason you have to keep your data within the local devices. But definitely you also have a threat of your system software or any methods that you follow could be compromised by some way or the other. It can get copied. Then just I was trying to see this question in the chat window. Is it there, chat window?
Yes, but I think it might be there a little further up in the window. Maybe we can come back to this question.
Yeah.
Another
Sure.
question we have by Sardana, they have two follow-up questions. One is, what is the difference between IoT and embedded systems?
Okay. And the other question?
Another question is, they want to know what courses they can do after doing Arduino and RPI.
Okay. So the first question is, sorry, I was trying to read this. Okay.
Yeah. The first question is difference between IoT and embedded systems.
Okay. IoT, as the name says, it is Internet of Things. So it's more of data connectivity and more than human involving. We are actually observing all the machines, equipments, plants, and every gadget around us. So Internet of Things, the things itself means it's a generic word that it can be a data from anything. It can be a data of a wind or any device working in your office or home. So that is essentially what is Internet of Things. But embedded systems is something like a embedded systems is a kind of a branch of engineering where you are writing programs, so that you have all the systems which 50% of it have the required architecture and mechanisms embedded or implemented by manufacturing, and the remaining your configurability is given in terms of software programming. So when you say embedded systems, definitely all the IoT devices use processors and controls. So this is one point where Internet of Things and embedded systems touch together. So if you are an embedded engineer, definitely you will be working on IoT. And if you are working in IoT industry, it may not be necessarily that you will work on embedded, because IoT itself is a generic word and it's a very vast subject. So that's what. So maybe if you are your background is electrical or computer science or whatever, or even with a specific detailing of this question, I will be able to answer better.
Okay. If they
Yeah.
give some details,
So I
we can
think they
take
had
it
one more
further.
question. There was one more question, right?
Yes, one more question they wanted to know is, after doing the Arduino and RPI, what courses can they do?
Yeah. Okay, so I have already answered this earlier. Um, I don't know if there is any specific training program given only for Arduino, or maybe you are learning as part of your curriculum or as a hobby. But once you get into Arduino or Raspberry Pi platform, you can use it for getting familiar with all the devices and get an understanding and get a feel of how these are all working. And maybe over a period of 3 to 6 months, if you are familiar, or maybe up to 1 year, you can play with all this. But once you do, then it is advised that if you want to go further in the embedded industry and you are really enjoying programming, then definitely you need to undergo a formal training program where you have to find out any embedded institutes they dedicated. They exclusively give training on embedded systems. But unfortunately, many embedded institutes, they also start with Arduino and Raspberry Pi. This is the biggest challenge in the industry. So definitely, I hope there are many institutes there. Even though they start the candidates with Arduino or Raspberry Pi open platforms, eventually they help them to get into a proprietary platform where they have to do real coding. So this is what happening. But definitely, without any training, it will be difficult. But if the candidate has very good interest and they are very passionate about it, then even without a training, they can build these skills by their own.
Okay, thank you for answering that. We do have some
Yeah.
more questions, but before that, I would like to conduct a feedback poll. Everyone who's there on the call, I'll be sharing a poll. Please do give us your feedback. We'll run this poll for like a minute, and simultaneously we'll continue answering other questions. I hope you can see the poll, so please give us your feedback. In the meanwhile, another question that we have, Jai Krishnan, is major difference between wireless sensor network and IoT network.
Okay. So again, IoT, I say it's a generic word where you cannot call anything which is not IoT, because they have some kind of data or some kind of sensor. It reads data or stored or processed, and it is connected to internet, or it is connected to another device. So this is what IoT. But wireless sensor network is, it is a kind of application where you utilize the basic engineering skills and the manufacturing processes to build the sensors, and you program the devices that it will work like a mesh network, and you deploy it in the field. So it can be called as an IoT system, and but from a developer perspective, they will say it's a wireless sensor network. But wireless sensor network as such is not a standard or any specific technology. It's only kind of maybe you call house. Maybe it's a 2-bedroom house, you call it as house. Or if it is a 3-bedroom also you call it. But when you see a house with a 2 floor, you call it as duplex. So it is something like it's a generic word, but you call it based on the way how you perceive. So wireless sensor network itself is a kind of an deployment point of view. It's nothing different from the IoT, but you have to basically understand what it is. So that will help you more than learning this differences between these terminologies. So this is one key aspect I think all these candidates needs to understand. You try to understand it, then it will be easy. But when you look at the terminology and try to hunt for the meaning of it, then often you will also get confused. This is what happening everywhere.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Another question we have is by Subhadeep Datta. He's asked, what is your view on ESP32?
So ESP32, it's a very good, I can say it's a chip, because we are hardware designers, we call it as a chip, but some people can say it's a platform. Some people will call it as a, module or a technology or many things. So basically ESP32 is a chipset by Expressive Systems. And in my view, it's a very low cost or very cost effective device which can handle 150 Mbps of speed. and it's a very good thing for people or students to start learning and work on. But unfortunately, we are also looking people who are familiar with this, and we have tried some candidates, but maybe after certain level they are not able to proceed because ESP32 has completely a different kind of IDE. We call it as integrated development environment. So people who are familiar with again all easy to use platforms, they will find it difficult to start with the ESP32. So people who have very good passion on programming and also who can work in, especially people who work on Linux systems, because they are the one really interested in programming and they have a flair for debugging and hacking everything. So they easily pick up on ESP32. And but definitely we recently made our candidate to set up everything in one PC. So it was possible. It was not a big challenge, even though he was a 1 year experienced guy. He was able to work on it. But at one point we could not see any improvement because the environment that ESP32, you need to do a lot of reading and learning through their documents. So if you want to start on ESP32, it is really good and very promising. But I'm not sure about the security because since it's a Chinese product, we don't know what are the certificate standard. But definitely they have done certification in various laboratories, and they claim that some of the internationally accepted security standards are being met and exceeding by this device. So it's a good thing to start with and learn, but I'm not sure any products are available in India, but definitely there will be many. But those things you need to check. In future, if you want to deploy your product based on ESP32, then I would advise you do more study and take a decision.
Great. We have one last question that is by Manish Sharma. He asks how IoT is beneficial in the field agriculture.
It is very promising in agriculture. Even few startups that we know, they are already working on it. So one basic problem in agriculture is water conservation and crop being attacked by animals, or even the moisture and humidity levels in the soil and chemistry properties. So by having all these systems, and even today these are all accessible and cost effective, there are many IoT related products for agriculture being deployed. So definitely it has a great future in India for making the agriculture more efficient. Maybe if you take an example of United States, the percentage of people who are farmers are very less, but they are feeding the whole nation. So it is something like the efficiency and the productivity, they are much ahead of India, where they have no much wastages, or there are no much yield related issues. So all these are all basically by using the technology appropriately to make the particular farming much more efficient and useful. So if you have a view, definitely you should pursue it in agriculture. I would definitely recommend it.
Thank you for answering that. So actually there's one more question by Sardana. They ask that what projects can you suggest for Arduino and Raspberry Pi?
So maybe, I don't know if you have already exercised many of the examples they have given already in their portal, but definitely you should be trying something, maybe image detection, and even you can also use it for like agriculture. So if you are doing anything, you try to see that it will turn to some kind of a useful end product or an application that somebody can use. So through that you will also learn something in an effective way. But as an exercise, you have many things, and we don't use these platforms. So that is one reason we suggest people to go and take some YouTube lessons where they share many kind of examples and how the people they use these open source platforms.
Okay. Pratik has a question. Pratik, can you please answer the question? Ask the question once more. Can you please type it out on the chat box once more if possible? Okay, Prateek was asking that how about the cyber security of IoT? Like
How about?
the cyber security of IoT. How does cyber security picture into IoT?
So essentially, IoT involves huge, high utilization of internet, right? So if your internet is secure, then your IoT system is also secure. You don't have a separate kind of mechanism for IoT alone. So whatever you implement for the security in internet is same thing that you also use it for Internet of Things, or you have a device. Imagine you have a firewall or kind of a security system on your PC running or on your mobile phone. Tomorrow you are building a device that will read the temperature or something, but you want security in that. So you have to implement similar kind of mechanisms in that device. So you can say your device is also secure. Yeah. I think it answers you.
I hope that answers your question, Prateek. I think that's all the question that we have for now. So thank you so much, Jaykrishnan, for taking us through this topic. Yeah, that answered Prateek's question. So yeah, thank you so much for taking us through this topic and answering all the questions. I think you've given a lot of detail about IoT and the various trends and how one can try and begin a career in this field. I would also like to thank everyone who joined us today. I hope you all had a good time. Apologies for the technical difficulties in the beginning. We'll try to do better next time. And please do write to us on alerts@Bovin. Visit our website in case any other topics you would want for us to conduct webinars in the future. We will be very happy to comply. And a video of this whole webinar will be shared to your registered email addresses. So you will definitely get all the source material from this webinar. Thank you so much once again.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramya, and thank you, Team Vervin and Satya Madam for this opportunity. So it's a great experience for me to interact with all job aspirants as well as people who are interested in IoT. And definitely in future, I am also planning to be joining the discussion forum of Vervin. So I will be able to give answers to your questions offline. And thank you for arranging this. So again, sorry for these technical errors that we were not prepared to manage. So
once again, thank you
thank
so
you all.
much, everyone. Yeah. We keep having other webinars. So in case you want to join our next sessions, please do register on bovin.com. And as Jaykrishnan said, please utilize our Q&A forum and leave your questions there, and we'll get back to all your questions, and we'll continue to hold these webinars for all of you. So thank you so much, and we'll be ending this session now.